but rather we live with the portion of the Torah, which is this week Parshas Ki Setze, and it begins with an interesting concept that applies to many, many situations. When men went out to war, it was normal for men to come back with war brides. Now, for Jewish people, this poses a problem because a Jew is not supposed to marry out of his religion. In times of the ancient battles, people would bring back spoils of war. Some of the things that we brought back were people. Most of the time, pretty women. And this phenomena is not unique to the Jewish people as well. People brought back women from captivity, captive woman. And this week we discussed the law of the captive woman. The Torah describes under what circumstances she could become your wife. Now this is a very strange commandment, a set of commandments. The reason is because the Torah specifically prohibits v'lo titchaten bam, we're not allowed to marry people who are not of our faith. Some people say it's only rabbinic, it only applies to the 7 nations, but in fact, in actual practice, one of the worst things that a Jewish man can do, or even a Jewish woman, for a Jewish woman there's a slightly less severe punishment, but nonetheless frowned upon. The worst thing that a Jewish man can do is to marry out, to marry what they call a Shiksa. And here, the Torah tells you how you can marry the Shiksa. You go out to war, bring her back, whatever the circumstances are. And the question is, if the Torah is so clear against marrying out, how could the Torah give us a set of rules how they could marry in? It seems contradictory. So with a word of preparation, the first battle that Israel had upon entering the land of Canaan under Joshua was the Battle of Jericho. The woman who helped the Israelite spies, Caleb and Pinchas, was Rachav, who was a harlot. This Rachav ultimately married Joshua, and her descendants were the main prophets of Israel. Almost all of the prophets that we have are her descendants. And so you see, just because someone comes from a non-Jewish background does not limit the spiritual and the holy progress of that person's soul. And so this is not a question as to the permissibility of marrying a person from another faith who embraces Judaism, but rather, if it is discouraged, how can the Torah encourage it at another situation? What is the rationale? And so we have 2 distinct